What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis coming to y'all with that quick video. Today we're going to really talk about one of my teams that, been good and been bad and been good enough and been not good enough and been inconsistent. As you see in the title, we're going to talk about the Washington Wizards. We're going to rebuild them. This is going to be one of the tougher teams because they committed so much money to their core of John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter Jr. Worst thing about it is they just gave Wall one of the biggest extensions in history. And the problem with that is John Wall had double knee surgery and had to get it cleaned back up. And even during the regular season, he didn't look the same. And you go back and watch that Boston series last year, he didn't look right. They went 7, but he didn't play his best basketball, especially in the fourth quarter. And then, for them to still make the playoffs with him missing significant time shows you that they're one of the better teams. But, with John Wall only getting older and having major knee surgery when he's a guy that, revolves around a lot of athleticism, that's something you don't want to really be in. He is one of the top 15, top 10 players in the world, one of the best decision makers. He keeps the game at a pace. He knows how to control the tempo of a game. He has shown you that he can help a team make it the playoffs over his whole career. He showed you that he's good enough to help you win a series. Obviously, they got put out in the first round this year, but honestly, they had a chance. They just lost in 6 to a better team. And John Wall wasn't fully healthy to me. Because remember, he just was coming off that knee surgery. And he was just recovering. And he was getting ready for the playoffs. And even though he didn't have that bad of a series, he also didn't have the best series. But Otto Porter is a guy that has been developing into something special. His ability to go from a guy that was never really great at anything when he got drafted. He has the size, he has the length, he has the potential. But to see him come into a form where he's not even 25, but he can shoot the three at over 40% from the 3-point line for multiple seasons and be a dagger, especially in that corner, and a guy that can, play great individual defense. And, he's a guy that you don't mind because he can switch because he has the ability to play 2, 3, or 4, and sometimes 5, depending on how useless the 5 is. He can guard those people too. And that's what you want in the modern day NBA, a guy that can shoot high from 3, especially when you have a guy like John Wall that's not a great shooter but a good slasher. You definitely want those shooters around him so he can always kick the ball out when he breaks down and collapses the defense. And that's something that he has made a career out of, with Otto Porter being on one side and Bradley Beal being on the other. Two guys that complement him and add floor spacing because they're knockdown shooters all across the court. And that's something you definitely want with a guy like John Wall. The problem with this team is Washington just can't get enough talent around them. And I see they drafted players like Oubre. They drafted some solid players to come off that bench and contribute. And they've been trying to find that sixth man. They tried Bogdanovich. They tried all these other players like Gary Temple. And I can go on and on about these guys they try to get at the deadline. Like Ty Lawson was another guy that they want to, bring in and have them play major minutes in the playoffs and give John Wall a break, give Bradley Beal a break. But if you look at this roster, I'm about to read off the names: Bradley Beal, Tim Frazier, Marcin Gortat, Ty Lawson, Jan Mahimi, Chris, Jody Meeks, Markieff Morris, Kelly Oubre, Otto Porter, Devin Robinson, Tom Satrowski, Mike Scott, Ramon Session, Jason Smith, and John Wall. That don't scream championship. And Washington has been able to be a perennial team that been able to make the playoffs. The problem with Washington is they never been on that level to win a championship. And we're starting to see that with teams like Portland that has a similar situation with, Dame and CJ. And then you have a player like Nurkic that ain't an all-star dominant center, but he knows his role of being floaters and finish around the rim. That's kind of like what Marcin Gortat do. He hit some jumpers, hit some floaters, and lay it up and dunk and play hard on the rebound. Obviously, I prefer to have Nurkic because he has more potential and he's younger, but they both do similar things. And, you know, That's the thing. But this Washington team has been really stuck in mediocrity. And honestly, I don't really see a way for them to get out of it. They can't really go get a big name free agent after they sign Otto Porter to that max, well, near max, and Bradley Beal and John Wall. They're committed to this core, but with Milwaukee getting better, with Philly getting better, with Boston getting two All Stars potentially back, the future don't really look bright for the Washington Wizards in the Eastern Conference because they don't have nobody they can get. Worst case scenario, the best case scenario for them to be a contender is a guy that's a star or superstar wants to come play with them, and they're able to pull off a trade to acquire that guy to put with this nucleus. And if that doesn't happen, it's really no other legit way but to try to draft a player late in the draft, because when you make the playoffs, you don't get a high draft pick unless you traded for it. So if they can't get a high draft, hit the nail in the coffin on a draft pick, that pans out to be a star fast, this team gonna be stuck with their big three, and it's not gonna be good enough. Now, if you would have said this 3 years ago, I would tell you that Washington is on the rise. John Wall looks amazing. Bradley Beal looks like he's going to be a potential superstar. Otto Porter showing, signs of being an all-around player. But 3 years later, now that we see how the team has come, they don't have a bright future, guys. And I know it's going to hurt a lot of Washington fans, but even if John Wall comes back healthy, even if Bradley Beal continues to expand his game because he's still young and he just became an all-star and he has gotten better to me every season and he's 24 years old, and Otto Porter is also 24 too. They still young and they still can develop and they still can be better, but how high is their ceiling if all three of these guys get to another level next year? You still have other teams that have a brighter future, and on top of that, more talent than you do, complete roster wise. Now, I know in the playoffs you shorten your rotation and you don't play your bench as much, but injuries happen. Can you have that replacement guy that can still play at a level that you can still win games in the playoffs? Do you have a team where, even though they're young, can they play 41, 48 minutes of excellent basketball to beat a Cleveland, to beat a Philly, to beat a Boston? Especially because these teams can only get better just like the Wizards. But these teams are already past the Wizards. They have good benches. They have good players. They have all-star players already on the roster, and they have more depth, and they have more picks, and they have a brighter future, and they're already the better team now. So to me, there's nothing that Washington can really do but try to nail their late draft picks, which they've been doing to a certain extent. But they also have traded those picks, and right now they have the 15th pick in the NBA draft, and Zaire Smith, Landry, Kyrie, Gary Trent, Anthony Simmons, Lonnie Walker. These are the guys that they're looking at in this draft. Yes, they can get a Kelly Oubre in this draft. Yes, they can get a player that can come in and contribute right away off that bench, and you can evaluate them and prepare them in summer league. Some of these guys have potential still for their position, but I don't think the free agents is going to help because they don't really have the cap space to get a free agent. I don't really think the draft is going to be it, because if you're building your team still around John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Porter, that pick can only really be a six man, because who is not really one guy at this five position that can really change your franchise, because most of them are point guards and shooting guards, which you already have an all-star point guard and an all-star shooting guard. So you will only really find a guy at this position that you might just bring off as a seventh or eighth man and just save salary, but you can just sign a veteran that can come in and give you something right away at that position. But they do have a chance to get Robert Williams, who's a power forward and a center. That's a sophomore. If he drops in the draft, they can pick him up. Even if they get a guy like Miles Bridges, that's an all around guy that kind of like Otto Porter that has potential at best he's going to be a bench player on this Washington team. And with the ability not to really be able to get any free agents or any high draft picks that can turn into stars at that power forward or center position, if you don't want to get rid of Otto Porter, you're stuck. And that's the reality. It's not really that many things you can do with this roster because John Wall contract is difficult to trade, even though he's an all-star. Somebody would want him, but what are you really going to get in return for John Wall? What can you really? You don't want to trade Bradley Beal and Otto Porter because they're not even 25, and they have improved every season, and they're shooters. Everybody want the wings. Everybody want the 3-and-D. Everybody want the 3-point shooters, and they're two of the best at that area of shooting threes. And Bradley Beal have became one of the more all around shooting guards in the league. Even though he can continue to improve, he's only 24 years old and he's an all star. So even though they can still develop and still get better and still get pushed more to get the best out of this roster, if the organization is not really willing to pay to put this team over the top, this year in the draft is not going to help, and this year free agency is not going to help. The biggest thing they can do is sign KD because he's from Washington. And that can take them to a team that's on the brink, to a team that potentially can compete that will compete in the East. But even if they have Bradley, Bill, Wall, and KD, honestly, I don't even know if that's enough to even come out the East with Boston, with Philly, and Milwaukee with Budenholzer, and you still don't know what LeBron is going to do. It's not even a guarantee with John Wall, Bradley Beal, and KD that this team is a contender. Well, they will be a contender, but they're not guaranteed to come out the East. And that's the best case scenario. You let Otto Porter go to another team that would trade for him to clear the cap space and trade another guy to clear the cap space to sign a guy like KD, but that's not going to put you over the top. I can see if adding KD would make you the best team in the East, then of course you would do it. But adding KD doesn't even guarantee that this team will be the best team in the East, let alone even if they get out of the East. The goal is if you can get out of the East is to win the championship. I don't even know if they'd be a favorite with KD to win a championship with teams like San Antonio, Houston, Golden State, and like I said, Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly. Even with KD, they might not even be the favorites to come out the East, and that's crazy because he's the best player to me in the world, and he won't even be a guarantee. And you can't say LeBron would do it. LeBron didn't go against a healthy Boston team. He didn't even play against Philly in the playoffs. So we don't even know if he was going to be able to beat Boston or Philly because he didn't play either one of them healthy, or he didn't even play Philly at all. So he might not even got past Philly. He probably would, but he probably might not. And he probably wouldn't even beat a Kyrie, Gordon, Hayward Celtics team because they took him to 7 without him. Even though they play style and how they will play will be different with those players, but it's still not guaranteed that Cleveland would have came out if they would have played Philly or played against a healthy Boston team. So with that being said, it shows you at the end of the day that it's hard to win a championship. It's hard to build a team for a championship. And when you're a team like Washington, when you have the All-Stars and you have the talent, but you don't have the ability to draw other big names to your city besides drafting them, it's difficult to get to that championship level if people don't take a sacrifice of taking a pay cut and doing whatever it takes to get this team to the next level and get more talent to this team so that way they have a chance to compete for a championship. If you want to be a championship team, the organization, the coaches, and the players going to all have to sacrifice for the greaterment of the goal of winning one. And I don't think Bradley, Bill, John Wall, and Porter really did that to put themselves in a position to really compete in the East at a championship level. Remember, this team has not even went to the Eastern Conference Finals once. I know they was one game away from it last year against Boston, but if you can't even get to Eastern Conference Finals, you shouldn't even be even thinking about getting to the NBA Finals. You should want to get there, but if you can't even get to Eastern Conference Finals, you're not even close to being a championship contender. So, but they can't really get a big free agent. The draft picks that they have at their position is guards, and they already loaded with guards, and they can always sign the guard free agent because there's so many point guards and shooting guards on the market this season. And then you got to remember about the G League and the Summer League. You're going to get a lot of undrafted people. You can draft a guy. So you can bolster this bench a lot more. But is that going to be enough to really put you in a championship conversation. And even though I like them to get some picks in this draft and be able to fill out that bench and fill out that roster, and probably pick up some free agents too that can really take some salary dump. I mean, take some low salaries to give them more depth for the regular season, so Bradley Beal and John Wall don't have to get injured so much. Get loud them to play less minutes so they can save more energy for the playoffs and make a run. But that's the best case scenario for this Washington team, to draft guys to play off that bench and try to get a power forward center that can take you over the top if you're going to keep your big three together. But worst case scenario, you're going to have to trade one of these three guys to get a guy that can potentially take you over the top. And will that be enough? Check out my website, AnalysisPlayground.com. Link will be in the description in the comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, AnalysisPlayground.com. Link will be in the description in the comment section below. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis, I'm gone. And let me know what you guys think about the Washington Wizards situation, their circumstances, and what they should do in the future to turn themselves from a playoff team to a championship contender.